we all have testimonies, and like you said, most of us have more than one. My most recent testimony with God occurred last year in June 10th of 2023. I had what the doctors described as a near-death experience. Um, I was home alone and I had a brain aneurysm. I had been running some errands. I walked into the door of my home, and suddenly I started having this excruciating pain in my head. And then I started feeling heat sensations within my head. And suddenly I'm screaming in pain because the pain was so bad. And as I walked towards the sofa in my living room, I just fell into the sofa from the pain that I was experiencing. But I'm gonna tell you how great the Lord is. I was able to get my cell phone, which was laying on the coffee table, and I was able to summons help for myself. No one's here. I'm all alone. No one is here, and I'm having this medical uh, issue, emergency, and so God allowed me to summons help. So I called 911, and I'm talking to the dispatcher. I'm screaming, literally screaming out of pain at this dispatcher, trying to explain to her what I didn't know I was having a brain aneurysm. I just know I had a headache. I've never felt that type of pain ever in my life, along with the heat that I can feel in my head. And I now know that was blood filling up in my brain.
Jesus.
So I just, I get on the phone with the dispatcher, and she keeps me on the phone. She says the ambulance is on the way, the paramedics are on the way. She says, can you unlock the door, make sure the door is unlocked? So I'm literally on the sofa in pain, and God allowed me to have the wherewithal to get up to unlock the door myself for the paramedics to be able to get in. And so they come in and get me on a stretcher. And I remember them putting me in the back of the ambulance. And I think at that point I lost consciousness or something, because they took me to a hospital nearby within 20 minutes of my house. But I'm told that particular hospital could not treat me because they're not a brain trauma facility. And so they took me to another hospital 4 hours later. I'm at the first hospital 4 hours before I go to a different hospital. Now, I have no personal recollection of any of this. I'm totally not conscious at this point. And they put me back in the ambulance and take me to the hospital that is most known for brain trauma. And so I go there, which is another 45 minutes away. And so I go there, and within a few hours, I underwent brain surgery to stop the bleeding in my head. And I'm there a few days in ICU recovering from that. And they tell me again, I'm not aware of me being there at all. I have no, I think I have consciousness at this point, but I don't know I'm there. Don't even know I'm in the world. They said I was responding. Nurses would come in and ask questions, and I responded like, Miss Jones, are you in pain? And no, and I don't even remember the questions or responding or anything. So after a few days after they did the first surgery, and the blood started to go down, the level of blood in my head started to go down. They tell me that the more the blood went down, it did what they expected it to do, but I began to decline. My health began to decline. And so they about 4 days later, they went back into my brain, did another surgery to insert a shunt. So I spent 2 weeks in ICU. And then after after 2 weeks, I spent a couple of days in a regular room, I guess they tell me. And then I went to the rehab part of the hospital facility. So I'm in the rehabilitation part of it, where I undergo physical, speech, and occupational therapy. I could not walk. I could not talk. And I could not even hold a fork. They tell me I didn't. And what I learned, I just mentioned a brain aneurysm, but what I learned later from further visits with my doctor follow-up is that I actually had a major stroke first, or it was almost simultaneously, because the major stroke caused the brain aneurysm. So it was the stroke that I had that caused the brain aneurysm. Tell me God ain't good. I mean, those are two major events that happened back to back, almost simultaneously at the same time. And and today I'm here. I can talk. I can walk. You can think. My brain is functioning, and there's no residue per se of having gone the trauma that I just described to you. Um, I remember I woke up, I didn't get the wherewithal of where I was until the 28th of June. Now, all of this happened, this incident where I ended up in the hospital happened on June 10th, but I did not even know I existed until June 28th. And I only remember that because I remember, waking up and I was in the rehab part of the facility. I didn't know I was in the rehab part, but I, learned that later. And the therapist came in, the physical therapist came in and asked me, Ms. Jones, do you know what day it is? And I, cheated actually, because behind her was a whiteboard with today's date written on it. It said June 28th. And I sound like I really know what's going on, but I'm looking at the whiteboard and I said, it's June 28th. And she says, yes, very good. Yes, very good. So from June 10th, when I came in by ambulance, to June 28th, there's 18 days in there that I have no recollection at all of, none at all. But God protected me and allowed me to still be here. And I'll share this too with your viewers. I had an encounter with the Lord during that time. As Paul would say, I don't know if I was in my body, out my body, but he spoke to me and reiterated the purpose. He shared with me. I remember waking up to some consciousness, and I was sad. I was sad because the Lord's heart was broken, because that was when my assignment shifted to leaders, because the Lord he was brokenhearted about where we as leaders have come short of being authentic and truthful. And, we've gotten complacent in such a way that we tolerate the things that God hates. We're not to hate the person. We love the person, but we are to hate the sin. And we had gotten so lukewarm as a body of Christ, as the church. We became so lukewarm. And the Lord, in that time when I spent time with him, during the time I was, just still recovering, those things, that's the thing that he kept talking about, that breaks his heart, that we've become so complacent, that, not redirecting people from sin, even if they don't accept it. We have to, be very, purposed about what we believe and about the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we have kind of watered it down. I think about, statistically, they say the most growing faith right now, church, if you will, religion right now, is none. People are choosing, to worship the universe or the sun or the moon or everything but God. And they're making that choice. And I believe that if we begin to stand in faith and be unapologetic about who God is, I believe that folk will come back to the Lord. But we have become so watered down. Sometimes you can't tell the church from the world. Are you born again? If somebody got to ask you if you're born again, something wrong.